Dan and Amy, all the talk has been about Trump being some kind of Manchurian candidate for the Russians. We've elected this person who's compromised by the Russians. In point of fact, we've missed it all along. We should have been focused on Vice President Pence as a Manchurian candidate for 18th century barbarism against women in particular. But
right.
This man is a monster. We started to find out last night, and the evidence is continuing to grow, Amy.
Well, because they did a profile on Second Lady Karen Pence, and it included that tidbit from years back that said the vice president never eats alone with a woman other than his wife. So he doesn't want an appearance of impropriety. He's an honest, dedicated family man, and somehow that is bad. That is oppressive. Well, he was in Ohio on Saturday and joked around about his wife having dinner plans, and just see if it fell short on the crowd.
Speaking of my wife, Karen, she's really sorry she couldn't be with us today. She already had dinner plans. All kidding aside.
You know why? You know why it's not funny?
Why?
Because this is not a funny subject.
Okay.
The horrors of his efforts to stop women from advancing by not giving them access to
him.
Well, to his dining time. Look, it gets worse.
Oh no.
Washington Post op-ed over the weekend. Mary Vaught.
Oh please.
She served as press secretary of the House Republican Conference under then Chairman Mike Pence when he was a congressman from Indiana. I worked for Mike Pence. Being a woman never held me back.
Good.
My work product determined my success, not private dinners with the congressman. While looking back on my time in the office of the man who is now vice president, I don't consider it to be a period of missed opportunities. So now you've got that he won't have dinner with women who aren't his wife without her present. And now, listen to this, he's judging people who work for him based on their work product.
Oh no, say it isn't so.
This man is a barbarian.
How are we going to get ahead? He's the misogynistic behavior.
The savagery doesn't end there. Ms. Vaught goes on to document that the fact of the matter is it's not as though then Congressman Pence was out having private dinners with male staffers and I was excluded. He wasn't having private dinners much at all. He had children at home, so as often as possible after voting in his daily duties, he'd race home to share a meal with the people that mattered most to him, his family. You've got not having dinners or worse with women who aren't his wife. I mean, loving and respecting his wife, strike one.
Mm-hmm.
Strike two, judging people based on their work product for the purposes of advancement.
What about their looks? I mean, you got to factor that in.
That's strike two. And strike three.
Yes.
He's not out carousing, having a time with the guys. He's going home to spend time with his children and his family after he's done voting and with his daily schedule. I don't think we have much choice other than to move to impeach Mike Pence as Vice President of the United States. For more on this and another important perspective, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Matt Walsh. He's a columnist for The Blaze, theblaze.com. He's also the author of the new book, The Unholy Trinity, Blocking the Left's Assault on Life, Marriage, and Gender. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So read your piece last week in The Blaze, which was quite entertaining, the things that married people need to understand about marriage. And why don't you make the case, contra to the case I've made, why Mike Pence shouldn't be impeached for his transgressions against 21st century cultural norms?
Well, I don't know. You kind of convinced me. I think maybe I was a psychopath.
Yeah, right.
You make a compelling case. But, I think the problem is that we have a lot of people in our culture who just have no concept of what it means to be in a committed relationship, particularly a marriage, a healthy committed relationship, because they've never been in one and they've never seen one. That's one of the things we have to keep in mind about. I think this outrage was driven, as usual, by millennials, which is my generation, I'll admit. And the thing about my generation is that I'm an exception to this because my parents are great. But for the most part, we've never encountered a marriage that actually worked because we grew up in broken homes. And, if you turn on the TV, you're not going to see very many examples. So when we see or when we hear someone who's been married for 20 or 30 years or however long they've been married, describe what goes into to a marriage, even with really basic things like this, we are scandalized by it because we had no idea that marriage there are things like you have to put up things like boundaries. We had no idea, so it scandalizes us. So that's what's kind of interesting about it.
But how can, I mean, some women are saying it's misogynistic behavior, that he's somehow, degrading women by just being faithful to his wife. It makes no sense.
Yeah. I guess men can't really win because if you're a married man and you're I assume if you're going out with the intern and the secretary, then I assume you're a misogynist for that. But if you don't, you're also a misogynist. So no matter what you do, you're a misogynist. But that's one of the things we have to remember about men, according to feminists anyway. Yeah. No matter what we do, we're misogynists. So that's why it doesn't matter what they say because we lose either way.
Well,
I would think that this is someone respecting us. But I think what happens is when a man respects his wife, to a lot of people that reeks too much of old patriarchal norms, and so they don't like it for that reason. Anything that smells of tradition, they don't like, I think.
Well, I got to admit, even though I fashion myself as a conservative, the left has got me on this one because, I too don't want to provide consideration for anyone other than myself. So I'm attracted by their argument, but I wonder what road that leads us down, in your opinion, Matt.
Yeah, well, it certainly doesn't work in a marriage. This is a problem, in my opinion, in liberalism. It's kind of the worship of the self. So everything is relative to your own desires and what you want, and you get to bend the laws and the rules to yourself. Even like scientific laws, like the laws of biology, you get to bend to your whim, and you can be a woman even if you're a man if you want to be. So that certainly doesn't work in a function. I think functioning that way just in general doesn't work. It doesn't help you be a functioning human being. But especially in a marriage where you're bound to this other person and you're supposed to be constantly, really trying to serve them. And so I think it's just a philosophy that doesn't translate well into marriages or into life in general.
Give us.
Do you think Vice President Pence and his wife Karen should sit down and promote this fidelity issue, this commitment issue that they have with their marriage?
You know what?
Because I would love to see it.
Yeah, I guess vice presidents and the vice presidential wives always take on some issue that's going to be like their pet issue, and because they have nothing else to do, I guess. When you're you don't have a lot else to do when you're vice president. Let's face it. So yeah, I think this would be great for them. Honestly, this could be their issue. It's obviously an issue that's important. I think it's kind of sad that we're at a point in society where we need the vice president to explain to us why you shouldn't go on dinner dates with other women.
You think?
But yeah, apparently we need that. We need that authoritative voice. So.
Well, we did
for the next 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did have. Dick Cheney was, not out carousing, obviously, but
No.
we did have, former Vice President Al Gore. He likes to get touchy-feely with hotel masseuses. You've got their vice president nominees of lore, like John Edwards.
Oh, please.
So maybe that does create some confusion in the body politic, I suppose. But I want to go to your book to get off. I mean, it's incredible. I agree with you. It's incredible that we're actually having this discussion about Mike Pence and his Leave It to Beaver lifestyle, as this is something that is a threat to the Western civilization. It seems like quite the opposite, which is the thesis of your book, The Unholy Trinity, Blocking the Left's Assault on Life, Marriage, and Gender. Connect the dots for us. The assault on life, marriage, and gender, they're all connected, aren't they?
Yeah, this is about redefining, what the left has been doing over the last 40 or 50 years is going through and redefining these essential pillars of human civilization. So they began by redefining human life. They made life itself relative, so that the life of an unborn child is relative to how his mother feels about it, how convenient that life is to those around it. So if the life is not convenient to those around it, then it's no longer a human life and it could be killed and thrown in the garbage. And then they moved on from there, a few decades later to redefining marriage and completely stripping from marriage the procreative aspect of it, which was one of the defining characteristics of it. And then I think a lot of conservatives thought that they'd sort of be done there and that would be it because they hit life and marriage. What else is there to do? But then they moved on to biological sex and gender. saying that we're even going to redefine that. And now this is a fluid situation, and your sex has absolutely nothing to do with your reproductive organs, your DNA, your genetics, your chromosomes. And as they've been going through, on this campaign of redefinition, they've encountered along the way, very little pushback, decreasingly so, to the point where they got to this final stage, a stage that, hey, by the way, 10 years ago, nobody would have thought that we'd be here, where we're actually arguing about whether, what defines a man and a woman. But when they got here, it was a pretty easy and simple process for them. And now this is the mainstream point of view, even in our schools and media, academia. This is the mainstream point of view. So I do think, of course, they're all linked together. These are once this process is complete, they've essentially defeated objective reality and objective truth, which is the ultimate goal of liberalism.
Yeah.
Defeat any concept of objective truth, and I think that they've almost succeeded in doing that.
And all those silly rightists as well as conservatives who thought, well, we could just erase some of the lines and then redraw them. Once you start erasing lines, you don't get to redraw them. Matt Walsh, columnist for theblaze.com, the book, The Unholy Trinity, Blocking the Left's Assault on Life, Marriage, and Gender. Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.